Welcome back to another day of Living Out Loud. And today we're doing a special edition. My nose is all sweaty. I see I'm shiny. We're doing another special edition today because this is the day for voting. So that's why we have this really cool Live Out Loud voting thing. So, and I owe it to my friend Lori, because I told her, I was like, Lori, come be on the show. And she's like, it's Voters Day. It's November 3rd. She is like my, rah vote person. So I decided to have her come and hang out with me during this day and share about different things, what your idea of voting is, why you vote, how you vote, all of those kind of things. And I'm inviting you guys to come and be a part of it as well. This is pretty exciting. I am, however, going to do some shameless advertising, but we'll do that later because we got our new cups. Look at that. Look at those new Living Out Loud cups. Aren't those adorable? Very nice. I know it's shining, but I'm going to show you later how you can get your own Living Out Loud cup, as well as your cool Living Out Loud sticker. Look at that. I call that shameless advertising. I'm just going to tell you. But I'm excited about having you guys here and sharing your opinions, sharing your thoughts, sharing your ideas, all about voting, because this has been a huge issue lately. There's been like all of this conversation, who to vote for, who not to vote for, yang, everybody's screaming. And so I'm going to bring my friend Lori up, and we're just going to have some conversation. If you have some questions, jump in, share your thoughts, because that's what this show is all about. You jumping in, sharing your thoughts, and we'll share our thoughts about the election and also just about voting. One of the questions that I proposed, is voting a duty or a choice? And I actually put it on the Living Out Loud page. So if you're on the Living Out Loud page, definitely go in and let me know your thoughts. Do you feel like you have a choice when you vote, or is it a duty? Is this my responsibility? Or you just vote because if you don't, everybody's going to be tripping, right? It's like, really? Everybody's tripping on me because I didn't vote. Okay, I've been there. All right, so we're going to bring Miss Lori up. We're going to bring Lori up, and she's going to join me, and we're just going to chat a little bit. So, hey, hi, Lori.
Here I am. I was looking at the background.
Oh, it's a fine background. Your background's fine. I just look really light because I have to light myself up.
Well, you have the professional studio. I'm in my office, just a dark hovel, dark cave.
What'd you say? You got your dark, you're in the dark room, and I have my professional studio.
Yes. But, I did open up my new Give Thanks flag that I was just about to put up when I realized I was getting close to time to being there. So,
you could have taken your time to put up your flag. So
that's in the background, see right there.
Let me see. Where is it? Let's see.
It's right there. I just got it. My other one from this one. I try to get certain months.
Oh, nice. Oh, I like that. I like that.
I try to change out my decorative flag, which is right outside my view out here is of my front yard and the street and stuff, and I have my little flag and kind of my reminder to give thanks, and I try to do stuff every month with my flags.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got Snoopy, of course, and I've got other, I got pretty ones, I got silly ones, so it's just kind of fun to do, and I don't know. So.
Well, Lori, share a little bit about yourself. I'm going to large screen you because I want people to meet you. There, share a little bit about yourself.
I was born and spent most of my life in the Midwest before moving out here to Colorado about 25 years ago. I was a nurse, an ICU nurse, a certified ICU nurse, if anyone knows what that is, for about 15 years before retiring. And now I do real estate. I have my own real estate business. And I also support my husband and my business. We we have farms and we have property management. So I kind of do all that. I do the accounting, I do taxes and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I do. I'm a Midwesterner, just like you were, and came out here to Colorado at the time when Colorado was considered, so nice and quiet and peaceful from Chicago. And it's getting a lot louder. So
and now it's crazy. Colorado is turned into California.
And Illinois.
It's a mixture of California, Texas, and Illinois.
Yes.
Because all of that.
The thing is that people leave those states for whatever reasons. They don't. My brother's looking to leave California. He's been there for, I want to say, almost 30 years, and he's like, I got to get out. I can't stand this anymore. And so it's like, well, that's what a lot of people are doing. They're like, they don't like the traffic, they don't like the culture, they don't like the politics, they don't like the whatever they don't like. A lot of people come to other states and they're like, well, you should do things this way, and then with their votes, they start slowly changing things to
So you feel like all of these people have come to Colorado and they've actually swayed how Colorado has voted.
Yes, absolutely. Colorado historically has been very, I guess you could say, conservative, but conservative in its voting and in its views. You still have like places like Boulder, Vail, when I first moved here, that were not like that. But when I first moved here, Fort Collins was actually, the district in Fort Collins was actually paired with Weld County. And so when we voted, it was based on Weld County. Well, our counties have kind of joined, kind of melded together here, growing together. But about, I don't know how many years ago, they rewrote the map. And so Fort Collins got lumped in the same congressional district as Boulder. And so that changed a lot of the dynamics with how Larimer County in of itself voted, or the election results, because at the time Boulder was much bigger than Fort Collins.
Really?
And so, and then you have your two largest universities in each of those places. You got CSU here, and then you've got Colorado State University here, and then University of Colorado in Boulder. And education tends to lean a little bit more to the left with their views.
Okay.
It's just, that's just kind of how it is. So you have this huge voting block here along the Front Range that's in the same congressional district with, and that was done, I want to say, in the late 90s. But I don't know. I can't remember. I can't remember what happens 5 minutes ago sometimes, based on, you're asking me all these questions. But like you, I didn't always vote. I went for a long time without voting. And I kind of when I switched out of nursing, I had to start dealing with the government a little bit more. And having to deal with governmental and quasi-governmental entities. And it just got to me thinking, it's like, well, what can I do? I'm not going to run for office. I would not be good in an office. I'm too short-fused and outspoken. And so that was one of the things I really decided. It's like, I need to start voting. I mean, my husband was the same way. We didn't always vote, but it was different because you had to physically go somewhere. Now here in Colorado, I don't know, past 10, 12 years, we've been doing like almost completely mail-in voting, which is nice. And
so you didn't used to vote?
I did not used to vote.
Why not?
I don't know. I just didn't. When you're in your 30s, 20s, and 30s, you have little kids. You have to do this. You're so consumed with what's in your little bubble. It's very hard to look outside your bubble.
Okay.
And once you start looking outside your bubble and looking at things that, I really don't want that to happen. You know what I mean? How can I, if I don't want that to happen, what can I do? And that was one of the things that, you can do. And is vote. Get out there and make your voice heard, make your voice known to people. And you don't have to say who you vote for. I think a lot of people out there who, this is just my opinion, a lot of people out there sit there and say they voted for one person, the other person, when it's nobody's business who you vote for.
Right.
It is nobody's business. Who I vote for, who you vote for, what I vote for, it's nobody. It's just my choice.
Personal, yeah.
From my experience, is my choice. And you're asking with this podcast about is it a duty or a choice? Well, it's what makes America great, United States great, is that we have the choice. There are some countries out there that voting is mandatory. That I don't know if they, it's called compulsory voting. I don't know if they enforce it, but I know it's mandatory. And then the other thing is that I don't know if it really means anything in those elections, if that makes sense.
Right. So, so a lot of countries, they do have where you have to vote. And sometimes it's not even a matter of what you're, voting for, what you really want to vote for.
And sometimes it's like, well, Venezuela still has voting. But, it's that country is such a sham with what they voted in, what they've done with their voting. It doesn't matter anymore. You got someone in power who's not going to release their power, and the country is going through a really horrible time in their period, in their history. And hopefully they will get to a point where that's not like that anymore. That's not that they can put the power. People can be empowered again. Right now they're so suppressed. They don't have the power that they need. And that's one thing, as a woman, we've only been allowed to vote, for 100 years?
Right.
In our history.
And so for me, I guess that's kind of where I am, because when I ask if it's a choice or a duty, because some people, like you'll get, you fought for this, they fought for this. And then, it's your responsibility to vote. But is it, that's my thing, is like, well, is it a choice to vote? And a lot of times we look at it like, well, yeah, you have a choice to choose who you vote for. But and then it's like,
you have a choice not to vote too.
Exactly. That's the question. It's like, do I have a choice not to vote?
From voting. If you are that disenfranchised, or you're that, like, I don't like anybody there, I don't like any of this stuff, and you're that disenfranchised, you do have the right to abstain. That's what makes our republic great. You have the right not to vote.
Right.
And that's your right. That's your personal. But the problem is if you looked at this ballot that we had, oh my gosh, it was like 2 pages long. I'm like, okay, and so I'm not sure like the exact things, but I think if you don't want to vote for any of the people, look at the issues that are on there. I mean, some of the issues are pretty interesting that were on the ballot this year, and some got a lot of attention, some got like none. And I'm like, why don't we hear more about this one? And then you get your little blue book that's like 100 pages long, and
I know. Because that was one of the things that I was looking at, and I talked to my husband about. I said, we spend so much time talking about the president, and who should be president, the vice president, but we never really talk about the other stuff that's on the ballot. We never really talk about all of the other things that are on there. And I'll be honest, I voted, but I voted for the issues. I voted for the the amendments and things like that.
Yeah. And those have more of a direct impact on you, say, versus other things. I mean, there was the abortion ban. There was the national popular vote, which
Mm-hmm.
is, in my opinion, coming from a state like Illinois where Chicago rules all,
Mm-hmm.
that's, you know that I'm talking about too. And that is, there's a couple things. There's like, also there was one on there, should Colorado lower its income tax rate?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes. When you don't vote for things like that, it was like from 4.6% to 4.3% or something, whatever. And it's like, but that wasn't even talked about
Mm-hmm.
anywhere. I didn't
Right.
see anything about that. I'm like, wait a minute, this is huge. This impacts Colorado.
I know.
Look at the layers of government too. It's like your first layer of government in our society is your city government. So you really need to pay attention to what's going on in your city.
Right.
Followed
Right.
by the county, followed by your state, then the federal government. And I'm not saying the federal government doesn't do anything, but the states' rights, that's one of the biggest things that we have are states' rights.
Mm-hmm.
And they, the government it's very hard. It's a very catch-22 because they cannot impede on state rights.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that you have to look at when you go to voting. I mean, we legalized marijuana. The federal government doesn't see it that way, but they can't really do anything because it's a state thing.
Right.
Does that make
But
sense?
that was, and that was the whole thing. Like for me, it was when I was looking at like the ballots and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, there's so many things that are going on under the surface that, you see on your Facebook page, you see all in the news. It's the president, it's the vice president, it's the this person, it's the that person, it's Kanye West, all of that. Right. But the thing is you don't see all of the issues. And I know I had one person that said, hey, vote for the issues. It's not necessarily, a lot of times we're voting for a person or we're voting for a particular party. That's why I have on my red and blue. You see my red and blue?
Awesome.
That's my party wrap. And so we are voting for parties, but then it's like, are we also voting for issues? But then not just taking it a next step is, are we voting for those amendment adjustments that are on the other page? Because you're right. It's like, that's one of the things that I looked at. I'm like, you don't even hear about this stuff. You don't hear about it until you get your ballot. And then you read your little blue book so that you can get better understanding of what these amendments, like you'll go around the neighborhood and they're like, vote for Amendment 115 or vote for
You're like, what's Amendment 115? Wait a minute, gotta go back to my little blue book.
Right. And then you have all the little people standing on the corner, which I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of people standing on the corner right now today out there in every city and state, standing on the corner telling you who to vote for.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's like I've never been swayed by that. Mm-hmm. You standing on a corner saying vote for this person has never ever swayed me to vote for who.
I know that's why they should be at home. It's like, go home, go home and
quit stepping out the curb in traffic.
Right, because I think most people who are on their way to vote has already made up their mind. I doubt if there's. I think there's rarely people that shows up at the voting booth and is like, who should I vote for?
No, I think they've already done it.
I have no idea who I'm going to vote for.
I mean, right now, this election, which is kind of historic, Colorado might have the highest voter turnout percentage-wise in the nation.
Really? Awesome. Well, that's also because we do mail-in ballots.
Yes, but see, that's the thing. We've been doing mail-in ballots for years. We've perfected our process, so to speak. We didn't just start doing it this year,
right?
Because of Corona. Right. I mean, if you could go to Walmart and you can go to Target, and you can go to the gym and you can go to the grocery store and you can go out to dinner.
You can pretty much put your ballot anywhere. You can
go anywhere. You can still vote.
Right.
And, even though the voting places are still open here in Colorado, even though we do have mail-in voting.
Right.
And the reason why I don't know, and I don't know as much, but I don't think that they can completely close those voting places down.
Right.
I think I think that
I think you still can do walk-in vote. I think you still can do walk-in voting, but It's so much. It is. It's like we get our ballot, and you know, it's like you can literally put your ballot in up till to, you know, you literally still put your ballot in. I do love the cute little ballot boxes though.
I think they need your touch though, with the artistic touch. Maybe a little.
I do. I love those cute little ballot boxes. We actually went last night and put our ballot in the ballot boxes. And I was like, should we take a picture like so many other people? I told my husband, I said, should we take a picture with our ballot?
So, my daughter is now 20. Your son is now going to be 20.
Mm-hmm.
This is how Louise and I know each other, through our kids. And so we sat down because Mandy, she didn't know when she went in. The one thing that Colorado has is that you do need an ID to get to vote. Okay, that's through your driver's license. You have to go through the DMV or the driver's license, whatever. And so it's always been like head scratching to me. It's like, what? When people don't want to have an ID to vote, it's like, well, here in Colorado, you can't get your ballot even mailed to you or anything without that.
But I think that's everywhere. They ask for.
But they were trying to require it somewhere, and they said it was xenophobic. I don't know. They started using words that like what? Yeah.
I remember when I used to vote when I lived in Chicago, and you go to the voting. You go up to the voting place and you stand before this woman or man, and they got the book. They got the big book out. It's like standing before the throny gates. and they had to check to see if your name was in the book, and then you get your name and show them your information, and they sign off on it or whatever, and then they give you your ballot, and then you walk into the little room and you make your
like partition, whatever.
You walk into the partition room, things that our kids probably will not experience, especially in Colorado, because we've been doing that mail-in ballot for so many years. And I like with my son, I'll be honest, I'm one of those people, it's like, I'm not a huge fan of like the whole drama around voting. And I think because there's so much drama and tension around voting, you do get young people that are like, I don't want to bother. I don't really care.
My personal trainer, she said, I'm not voting. I said, but you don't have to vote. I try to encourage her. I said, you don't have to vote for the people. You vote, look at the issue. She's like, well, I'm moving to California. I'm like,
you really want to vote?
I really want to vote.
You really want to hit
those
like, issues.
Why bother? She's, people that don't really think that their voices get heard with voting, but it does.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a true believer of that. But, I think it's getting to the point where, there's issues out there that I just can't, I can't turn a blind eye to.
Right.
And that's where it is. I mean, again, to vote or to not to vote, that's your personal choice. And nobody, don't have to tell anybody anything. Who cares? Mm-hmm. I mean, really, people are so into everybody else's business of what they're doing and what you're doing.
Right. I feel like we've taken all of the, it's okay for you to vote your way. It's okay for you to make your choice. It's okay for that. I think we've taken all that out. It's like, oh my gosh, you voted for who? Oh, then you're a terrible person. You're this.
And I think that's absolutely ridiculous.
Right. And
so you and I watched it. We watched, so Louise and I got together Friday night and watched The Social Dilemma. A friend of mine from high school is in it. And it was an interesting thing because, people are like, oh, how can you vote for that person? They're awful. They're awful. They're awful. And it's like, well, how can you vote? That's what we look at. How can you vote for that person? It's awful and awful and awful. And one of the things that a takeaway that is really quite true, because I see it when I'm online, is the things that are geared towards your way of thinking. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, why people think the way they do is because they don't see the other side. It's not the narrative that is being brought to their attention.
Right.
And I mean, when I look at, I'm doing this online learning thing with my boys, and, I have 2 kids with education plans, and they having 8 classes and trying to do a semester for a class in like 8 weeks. It was painful. So I would do Google searches, and I'm like, wait a minute. So I'd have to go to the second or third page to start seeing the differing views, if that makes any sense. And I'm like, well, why is it showing me this? This is not what I asked. And so, that was one thing about that movie that was interesting is, we are being swayed of how we think or how we look based on the narrative that is being presented to us personally.
And that's what I thought that was really interesting too, because and it was a really, I know you were like, oh, Louise, are you going to show it to your kids? And I was like, there's not enough Black people in there. Black people need to be in that. But I was like, they need to put some more Black people in here. Black people being
Black, now it's my friend.
Right. And so I know. Yeah, but I think he only had like 15 minutes of fame or something.
I'm still very proud that he
oh no. I thought it was a great movie, because it was like it showed how manipulative social media can be and is. But a lot of times we don't realize that we're actually being manipulated by these things, because it's like, oh, but this is social media, it's really cool. But yet when they're only feeding you certain instances, or they're only feeding you certain things, then you don't even realize that you are being swayed. You don't even realize that you're being pushed to this side, or you're only getting this view of what's really going on.
Absolutely. It's like, well, why? I have another friend on Facebook, and I try to stay out of the political comments on Facebook. I just don't have it. I want to respect other people's view. I'm not going to change your view. Right. I could try, but I think in my heart of hearts, I think people are looking at things, but not really understanding what they're looking at. So this friend of mine, some of the things she's posted have been almost offensive to me, which says something. I was an ICU nurse. Nothing ever offends me. But I saw this, and I'm like, she posted an article. She's just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so bad for LGBTQ rights or whatever. And it was an article about something that the Supreme Court said. But all it said was that, some of the rulings that have come out may infringe on our First Amendment rights. And that's what the article was about, was the First Amendment. And instead of reading the article and understanding, they just took the hook, which is the main, the main thing that they want you to see. And they didn't read the whole article. And I was like, well, if you read this article, that's not what they said.
What the article is about. Yeah, but that's all sensationalism. We see that all the time.
And Mandy took a journalism class, news writing class. And the hooks are what is supposed to bring you in. Right. But I think most people read the hook.
And that's it. That's all.
It's like short attention span theater. Yeah. And you just you can't do that. You can't just read a hook and come up with what the article is about.
Yeah. But wouldn't that be similar to judging the book by its cover?
Absolutely.
But that's also a part of the ploy. That's also a part of the agenda. You catch them with the hook, because we live in a society of what? 1-2 minute or 2 second attention span. So their thing is catch them with the hook, because they're probably not going to read anything else. And so then that, to me, that goes into fake news, misdirection, all of those kind of things. And you get that in the political arena, where you get these comments, you get the hooks, you get the comments, and then people are just reading that. This person did this, or this person said that, but it may not have anything to do with the actual article. And a lot of times it's the clickbait, it's like clickbait, click on it so you can actually see it. And so some people will do the clickbait and then realize, because that's happened to me, where I'm like, oh wow, this is interesting. And then you click on it, it's like, this is just junk.
This is not what I expected.
Right.
But don't the people in our, I mean, do you remember, you and I are similar in ages.
Mhm.
I mean, like how the news used to be. And it was like, they would read the story and in other news.
Right.
It would just be like the thing. And then they say, in Washington, they voted on this. And they didn't give an opinion.
Mhm.
They just said, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then they went to the next thing. And then, that's the thing. I don't like when I see you'll see it. You really have to see it because it's so nuanced
Mhm.
of the bias in either direction of the news media. And it's like, I can't even.
They do it so subtle, and that's one of the things that particular movie brought out. And I don't know if you remember, they do it so subtly till you don't even realize that they've altered a thought pattern. And that was the whole thing. It's like you don't even realize that they've altered the thought pattern because they do it so subtly. It's not right up in your face, but we get a lot of propaganda. We get a lot of propaganda, but we're so busy looking at all of these other countries. It's like, oh, these other countries, they're corrupt. They're this, they're that. And then right under our noses.
Oh, yeah.
Right under our noses, we're being slipped all of this propaganda, all of this stuff that is not true. And Facebook is notorious.
Yeah.
Notorious.
Twitter is even worse.
Yeah.
And I think this last week, the heads of like Facebook, Twitter, and all of them got called to Congress or Senate for filtering things that they should not have filtered. They were, someone would have a viewpoint, not a viewpoint, but they would put something out there and they'd flag it, but they wouldn't flag things from other people were saying that weren't true either. So they got called to the carpet for that. I don't know what happened. I've been kind of busy, but I know last week they were supposed to meet with some congressional hearing based on what they're doing, and why they're doing this. And
I know my brother, my younger brother got flagged for something, and he was on probation. He was on because we were like
probation.
We were like, where is he? Where's Lawrence? He's not. We haven't seen any posts from him. And then we texted him, and he sent us this thing, and he was on probation. And he's one of those political activists. He's very active on Facebook, spouting his views.
And that's his right. That's the thing.
Right, and that's just it. And that's who it is. Right, and he does that, and he's very animate about it. And they flagged him on something, and then literally pulled him off of Facebook for, I think it was like several months, at least 3 months. They pulled him off of Facebook. And my thing is with all of this crap and things that are on Facebook that's going on, and then he had an opinion that didn't measure up to the opinions. Now, mind you, me and my little brother, our views are totally different, and he is a radical for sure. But we've had some really great arguments on Facebook. I enjoy them. They're fun. And then I'm done, because I only do that with my brother and my cousin. I don't do it with other people because to me, it's more like playful banter.
Yeah.
But
the problem is we lost the playful banter.
Right.
We lost the ability to do that.
Yes.
There's people who post things on Facebook. I'm like, how is this not flagged? I mean, it's like disgusting. Almost like I just look at it and it's like horrific in my opinion. I mean, granted, I'm over 50. Maybe I'm getting old, but just some things that are just, I'm like, how are you able to post? I mean, but yet I have someone else post something and they get flagged, and it had nothing, and it was just their opinion,
right,
or whatever. And it's like, people are entitled to their opinions,
right?
But it is up to us as individuals to decide whether we're going to take that opinion
Mhm.
and run with it, right?
Right.
It's up to us to do our own due diligence. I'm not trusting the media to do what they're supposed to be doing, because they are failing on an epic grand scale.
But I think that's the whole thing, is that so many people have turned to media. So many
Yeah.
people have decided to let the media kind of dictate to them what the idea is. Okay, and that's just it. And the media knows it. You know,
Yeah.
they know this. They're like, we could feed you anything, and you're going to take it. And I do believe that they do. You know, it's like they target the youth, they target the young, they target a lot of the uneducated or the uneducated, because they're not going to do the research, they're not going to look it up. And so then you get this overpowering, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. And they're overpowering them with these images and not giving them a moment to reflect, because what? They're on social media all the time. And so they're being overpowered. And then their opinions are being formed. And and like I said, I'm a firm believer that a lot of the young people are not saying, I mean, there are young people that are voting, but a lot of them are saying, you know what? Forget about it. It doesn't, I'm not voting. It's just stupid. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't matter. And I think I think a lot of it is also because of all of the arguing for, against, you're this, you're that, you don't do this. And so the young people are like, they're all corrupt. They're all bad.
Yep.
None of them are going to do anything they say they're going to do. I think a lot of the young people are just saying, why bother? Why bother? You know? So
And that's sad
Mhm.
that we're getting this apathy from our younger generation. And I'm hoping things, you got to understand that they are, they haven't quite formed who they are.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
And what's happening is that they are being formed not by their experiences in their lives. They're
Mhm.
being formed, who they are, their experience outside their life.
Right.
And they, they're very influenced by what's out there. I mean, some of the things that even my middle child has said, I'm like, well, that's not true. This is why. And it's very, well, I read it on such and such. It's like,
Right.
come on. And so, yeah.
So I get that a lot too, where it's like, where'd you get this? You know, and it's like they start forming these opinions based on things that they've heard. And even though, like, in the home, we're teaching them things and telling them things and sharing things with them, they're still drawing a lot from outside, because kids are on social media. They're listening to what, it's like a lot of them, I'll tell you, a lot of them, they take a lot of this stuff as a joke. It's just funny. I mean, you could tell that by all the memes that are out there.
Oh, yeah.
If you look at the memes, if you look at the social memes, the vast majority that are creating those memes are young people, because they have decided that older people are just a joke. I can't believe they're this serious about this thing. Who cares? This isn't, how come they're so serious about this? Because young people are like, hey, I'm living for the day, they're just living for the moment. They're living for today. And so when they see this kind of stuff, the fighting, the political, all of this political stuff, they're looking like, what is wrong with them? What is wrong with these old people? Because
Yes, I know.
what is wrong with these old people? Hey, just get in your car and drive.
Because, like with the, I've seen a lot of things about, the Supreme Court and stuff like that. Well, this is who you're actually voting for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, do you realize that once a Supreme Court person gets in there, they are, their views are part of it, but the law is the law.
Mm-hmm.
And the legal precedent is there, and they actually are required to abide by what's been previously dictated. It's, the president has no control anymore over whoever goes in there. And so it's just like, granted, someone could be conservative or liberal when they go in, but it doesn't mean that they're going to view. And you've seen with some of the rulings that it's not necessarily based on what you're thinking. It's
Right.
not necessarily based on political. I mean, you see that if you really look at how they've decided and who. And it's interesting to read the dissents. Like the opposing opinion, whoever voted against it, they usually write up something why they did it, and they, and then the people who. It's really kind of an interesting read if you spend the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we are in this wonderful information age where everything is at our fingertips, but it's so much disinformation is out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's you almost need a class of how to pick out information from disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
And there isn't one.
No, I know. It's like, where's the book on society? And that's just it, because we do. It's like we have so much information and we're feeding it to everybody. Yes. But I really wish that they could realign how the system is, where it's almost like you can learn about all the issues and take it off of the person. Take it off of the person, because in actuality, you're voting for the issues. You're voting for what that person, honestly, you're voting that person in based on what that person's belief system is and what issues that he will address in a sense. So, and you're also voting on their character, which people really get into. But I feel that what most people don't realize is a lot of times presidents can't do a whole lot without all the other people that are in place. And so when you're fighting over the president and not paying attention to all of the other stuff that's going on, it's like you just wasted your entire day. Because you just, and I believe that's how mainstream media is. Keep you focused on this, and then you won't focus on this. Because how often has it been where you have this president, and then you have the alternate party? It's like you have a Republican president and a Democratic House, or you have a Democratic president and you have a Republican Senate. Because people aren't always paying attention to the whole picture. And I wish there was a way where people could learn the whole system. And when these kind of things come up, you're taught, and they would actually, the media would actually show and share everything, all of the behind the scenes, all of the different amendment things that are going on, all of the different people that are coming up. But instead, it's all president, vice president, some more, vice president, what the president.
Well, it used to be that, that's the thing. Right now we can't choose the vice president. Years ago, we used to vote for the president and the vice president separately. Right. Mm-hmm. And now they're like the ticket. And I'm like, well, why would we have gotten rid of that? Because, if someone wanted to vote for the president, they could vote for someone different. And the vice president, has kind of come to like the, behind the scenes joke.
Right.
And they're the second in line, person that can take over the presidency.
Right.
And I think that person is really important too. And it's like they've been put to this sideline. They've been shoved to the sideline.
Right. And see, I think that would be a great if they brought that back, because by voting for the president and voting for the vice president, you're actually putting two different, you might be putting two different thought processes in place, but they have to learn how to work together. They have to, it's like, instead of, it's like, oh, I'm going to pick my vice president because that guy, he's going to follow whatever I say.
That's not true.
And but that's what I'm saying. That's the concept. Put somebody in place that's going to agree with you. I'm going to pick somebody that I know was going to agree with me and follow me and not going to be opposing me. But if you voted on the president and the vice president, then I feel like it's a better combination, because it's not just somebody you voted because you felt, oh, well, this is somebody I voted for. I put them in office. I brought them in. Now they feel responsible or obligated to me in a way.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too. A lot of people, get swayed by, I just people like, you see all these celebrities coming out, and the celebrities, they are so far removed from everyday people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do things. They have a team of people with their images and their stylists, and they are so far removed from the actual goings on in society.
Right.
And they're in their gated communities in Beverly Hills or wherever. And it's like, I see what they, it's like, oh, so-and-so was with a thing with this entertainer and this entertainer. And it's like, no. When the celebrities start coming out and they're like, oh, you should do this, or you're this, or this. It's like, you guys have no idea what the average person does. You have no clue. I mean, when you make, it's just outrageous what they do. It's just crazy. And I think that's the other way we get swayed. People get swayed. Oh, I really like that celebrity. They like this person, so I will like that person too. It's like, well, can we, stop that?
Right. That's one of the things we talked about with media. They do it on purpose. Because they know there are people out there that's going to vote like Beyonce vote, or what is Taylor Swift votes, or Lady Gaga votes. They're gonna, vote like these people because those are the people they follow. And I remember when celebrities, you didn't know who they voted for. They didn't share those opinions. And actually, I loved it. It's like when all of a sudden they started coming into play, I feel as if it did a lot of swaying, and I also feel like it did a lot of confusing, because then people are like, oh, wow, well, this person is doing this and this person is doing that. And that's why it's like, for me, putting that statement up there, whether it's a duty or a choice, and like even on the Living Out Loud page, which you can go and like the Living Out Loud group, go and like the group. When I put that on there, is if it's a duty or a choice or both. And a lot of people put both, because in some instances it is a duty because of the struggles and a duty to select who you feel is comparable, is going to make a good president. And that within itself, some people take that on as a duty, and then some people take it on as a choice by choosing. Like for me, I have voted in some elections and I have not voted in some elections. And I have had people, they're like, well, Louise, do you realize I'm on both ends? I get women didn't used to vote. We fought for our votes. And then, Black people, we fought for those votes. So I get like dual fight. I get this dual, you have to vote because women had to fight for their votes and Black people had to fight for their votes. How dare you not vote when we've had to do all this fighting and do all the struggles? And I would always tell people, well, didn't they fought for my choice to vote?
Absolutely.
They fought for my choice to vote. And that's where I think we get it mixed up, is they fought for me to vote, but they fought for me to be able to choose if I can vote, So when I go and I look at things and I see that I don't care for anybody, then I'm like, no, I'm not going to vote for people that I don't trust nor believe in. But then I've learned that, like you said, what are the issues? What are those amendments that are in there that people don't see until they make it to the ballot box? You know what I'm saying? Until they get the ballot, and then they flip the page over And then there's all of these things on there, and they're like, huh, what's this? Because I remember doing that as a youth when I went to vote on the president, because nobody, it's like I grew up, poverty. Okay, so nobody knew until you got into the ballot box and you flip the page over and you're like, what's all this? How come nobody told me about this? What is all this stuff? And so we're not taking the time out. I mean, how many people you think are like, oh, let me go and take my kid and sit my kid down and explain all of this to my kid? So then you grow up from this teenager not filling those out because you have no clue, to an adult filling those out because you have no clue, because nobody bothered to even teach you that, hey, these issues are really important.
Yes.
These are the things that are going to shape your whole, this is what's shaping the world here. This is shaping your society. This is shaping how
your society, meaning your bubble.
Right. This is what's shaping what's happening in the world. It's president, but these amendments, once they go into effect, it's hard to get these things out. So you better make sure that you're checking the right boxes when it comes to that, because a lot of times we're not looking at that, and that's the whole thing, is like we get these young people and they're so bombarded with the whole presidency. So we're not pulling them back and saying, like you sat down with Mandy, you sat down with your daughter and said, let's look at these issues. We did the same thing with Philip. Let's look at the things on the back. But how many people do you think are sitting down with their kids saying, hey, come on over here, let's look at these things on the back?
It's the same disconnect, I think, and that's a whole other hour of parenting in absentia with your kids. That's a whole nother broadcast. But I mean, taking the time out.
That was last week's broadcast.
Taking the time out and really educating. I mean, civics used to be taught in high school. Civics is all about what you were talking about earlier. Now it's called U.S. government, but I've seen what they put out there, and I'm like, well, okay, but civics is you were from Illinois like me, and so as a graduate from Illinois high school, we had to take the Constitution test. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And we had to pass the U.S. government, and we had to do an Illinois specific one too, which I think we're lacking. At least I see that when Mandy graduated a couple of years ago. I don't see her doing that. I'm like, well, we had to pass these or we wouldn't have graduated.
Right.
These were like statewide. And I don't know if they still do that out there. But that was something that we had to do. And it's kind of funny when I was looking through my files and I pulled my my high school transcript and talk about the difference in society from then to now.
Mm-hmm.
The classes that I took, typewriting.
Mm-hmm.
I had to take shorthand.
Mm-hmm.
What were they training me to be? An administrative assistant. They were training me to be things. I mean, this is when women were starting to become not teachers and not, homemakers. And, we're talking late 70s or the 80s, whatever. And this whole dynamic, and I look and see some of the things that they wanted us to take and how it's kind of changed. And one of the things it was, we had civic, we learned about the electoral college and how important it is. We learned about, the government and the checks and balances to the point where it wasn't like this glossed over version of what we have today.
Right. And now they literally want to remove they want to remove the electoral college. They want to remove.
Yeah, and you and I know we are from Chicago, and I was in the suburbs.
Right. And I think that that's the whole thing.
The whole state.
It comes from not having these classes, not learning,
not understanding that
not understanding it, and
we're not a democracy, we're a republic,
right?
And our states, to represent each state needs to be represented,
right?
And that's why, Wyoming has 3 electoral, but they have the least population. It's like, yeah, but they have the largest state park, national park.
Mhm.
They have a lot of natural resources. They have, I mean, that's a thing. I mean, that state, they're like, well, your voice isn't being heard. It's like, well, it's being heard at your level, at your state level.
Right.
Whoever wins the popular vote here in Colorado gets Colorado's electoral votes.
Right.
Okay, so that's it.
And
as someone from Illinois, when we have state issues that affected the entire state, really, came out of Chicago. When Chicago voted for it, it didn't matter what anyone else. Everyone else in the entire state could have voted against the issue. It still would have passed based on the majority that is found in that one city that doesn't reflect the agricultural viewpoints of, if you go south from Chicago, all the way south, it's not city. It's not one big
all
city.
Agricultural. Yeah.
And that their views, their opinions, their needs are different from the thing. If you look at a map of how people voted in the last election, granted, they're like, oh, well, Hillary Clinton actually won the popular vote. I'm like, if everybody, say from LA, San Francisco, New York, they all voted for Clinton. Those are, millions upon millions of people. But then you've got all these other areas that didn't.
Right.
If you look at the true areas, and that therein lies when you have a country that is diverse and as unique as the United States. We're a pretty large landmass, not small. Granted, we're not as big as China or Russia, but we're pretty big and pretty diverse. And our culture is diverse. And and our society is diverse. We're not all doing the same thing. And so what affects the farmer in Iowa is not going to be the same as what affects the cab driver in New York. If that makes any sense.
Right. It's true. I mean, so how important, because everybody's like, this is an important election. This is a very important election. What are your thoughts on this election?
Well, I think, it's like it's the most important election of our time. It's like, well, how many times that's happened in our lifetime? It seems like every 4 years they say the same thing. And that's all about getting the vote out. That's the rhetoric. That's the narrative that they want to use. And I think it's important, especially during the fact that we are there are some differing views there with regards to the pandemic. And some of the views on some of the parties, I think I think it is important to really look at what these people want to do. The people don't like the president. They don't like him personally. I don't like him personally. But you know what? I look at what it has done. And I looked at, there's unprecedented peace in the Middle East. And now there's a third country that there's been a peace deal with a third country in the Middle East with Israel. That's huge. That affects, you're just like what you're saying, that's global. That affects us all in the long run. And you know what? I'm not the type of person to elect someone because I like them. I want someone who's going to try to get the job done. Right. I don't want someone who's going to appease other people just to do whatever. Now, if you look at if the tax cut, so one of the things that they're going to raise the taxes. We're on the brink of recession / depression. Right. We raise taxes, that may break us. And that's my worry. That may break our society and hurt us much more than anything else. And so I look at what they want to do with regards to that, and it's big, but it's always been big. Every year, every 4 years or every 2 years, it's always been. That's one of the things you have to look at. It's like, well, if this person, with this person or this issue goes through, there's some big ones. And for me, the big one on that ballot was not necessarily the president. Granted, I was talking about taxes. It was the national popular vote. And voting no for that. because I came from an area that, you know, you did have tyranny of the masses. You had people who would just they would not come to the other they would be statewide offices, but they'd only campaign in Chicago because that's all, you know, whatever. My great grandfather was a city councilman, and they used to pay people $1. This is like 100 years ago. Hey, you vote for this person, I'll give you $1. That granted, it's illegal now, but that's what they used to do. And you know, when we come, the other thing too is like, people have to get out of the mindset of what's in it for me, myself, and I.
Right.
You know, when we get out of that mindset of me, myself, and I, then we need to really look at we, us, and our. Right. And that's, you know, that's something that's huge. You know, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? You know what? That can't be sustainable on any level. You know, what's in it? You know, can we sustain this? Can we sustain this? And the answer is no, we can't. We have to. I mean, I've been to about 15 other countries. I've seen abject poverty. A family of 5, you know, living out of a shelled out VW Bug with nothing. There's no government supports or nothing. The people don't understand. But you know what? The funny thing is that these, you know, talking to these people, they're happy. They're much happier. Yeah. Because they don't have that. I mean, we went to Belize, and we were in the countryside, and I was talking to a restaurant owner, and he's like, yeah, I was pouring a new concrete floor. And a lot of people in the villages around there, they don't have concrete floors, just dirt floors. They take from the jungle, you know, what they need. And he's like, I had all this extra concrete. I offered to pour concrete floors for these people. And they're like, no, we're happy. They didn't want it. They don't want all that stuff. They're happy. And you kind of get to that. It's like, you know, there's something there. Yeah, you know, we and then they work together as a community. And that's huge. We've gone so far away from that. I mean,
I mean, I find that I feel like it's all about the government. What can the government do for me? What can the you know, do this for me? And we've gotten away from community helping community, people helping people. I grew up, that's how I grew up, where, you know, your church helped out, the people, your neighbors helped out. You know, if you needed a cup of sugar, you went next door and got a cup of sugar. You know, it's like, it was. And then you don't even know your neighbors now. Right, you don't. And it was more community organized, orientated. Yeah. And that was just it. And so I do feel like what you just said. And I also feel that we definitely, I feel like we're going more towards government, and that, you know, and yes, that selfish mentality where it's just me, mine, and me, mine, and mine, as opposed to looking at the whole picture, the whole worldview, the picture of the whole world, and how everything is actually affecting everything, you know, not just my little corner of the world, but globally, you know, nationally and globally, looking at it in that sense, and then voting also from that standpoint, as opposed to just voting from the standpoint of what am I getting out of it? What does this mean for me? But looking at it as a whole world issue, because then looking at it as a whole world issue, we're actually able to look at all of the issues, all of the things that's going on, as opposed to just the things that are affecting us. Yeah, no, and that's true. Because unless you really know, another thing we talked about, what else do we need to introduce to people's lives is statistics. You know, Mark is very good at that. He's very good at reading statistics and what importance they have. People don't understand when people are throwing all these, like the unemployment numbers and the jobless numbers and this and that, all these numbers get thrown out. People don't understand truly what they mean, you know, based on statistically what they mean. Like when the coronavirus first came out, they had this drug. I can't remember what it was. And they're like, oh, it showed a 3% improvement. It's like, wait a minute, that's not anything. Right. I mean, 3% is nothing when you look at the big picture. And so if people don't understand the numbers, they don't understand that, it's
you know, you have the internet. It has some really great, great resources
Resources. Mm-hmm.
that can help you understand that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, what does this mean? But you have to take the time to do it. Most people have this perceived busyness that they don't take the time to really educate themselves. And I'm like, well, what did you do? Well, I binge watched The Walking Dead. I'm like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Binge watching? I mean, for me,
All right, I'm a binge watcher, so I've been.
the problem is that the only time I ever binge watch is when I'm having a bout of insomnia. I don't do that during my waking.
I'm one of those people. If I catch if it's a good show, I don't like. I'm about to fall out of my chair. I'm one of those people that I binge watch because I want to get done with it so I can move on. I want to get done with it because it's a good show, so I want to watch all of it so I can move on. And I hate when it's a show that's still on, because once you've watched it till the end, then you got to wait for the next season. I don't like that. I want the show, when I binge watch, I want the show to be done. I want it to be off the air, and then I can just watch every single episode and then get up and move on to the next thing. I'm one of those chapter turners. It's like turning.
I know. And it's like there are things that I watch, but it's like last night you called me to verify today, and it's like I got done with everything. I actually fell asleep at 8:30, woke up at 10:30. I'm like, darn it.
Why did I fall this late? I know, I've been there. So we're at the top of our hour. As a matter of fact, we're 9 minutes over, but that's okay. Or 7 minutes. And this has been this has been a great conversation. I've loved chatting with you about the whole voting and how people vote, why people vote, and why people don't.
And the bottom line is, Louise, you have the right to vote, and you have the right not to vote.
Right.
And that's it. And not voting.
Right.
And
nobody should be pressured. It's like we need to stop pressuring people just because they decide not to vote. Just because somebody says, oh, well, you know what? I don't want to vote. And then we should just leave it at that, because that's their choice. But today, we just don't want to give people any choices.
No, we want to take the choices. We want to bully people into viewing us, what we think. But, the thing is that not voting is still our right as a society, as an American citizen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not compulsory voting. It kind of to have a society where voting is mandatory and compulsory really kind of takes the freedom away from voicing your opinion. Mm-hmm. Your opinion could be, I have no opinion.
Right. It's like, I have no opinion.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one thing that, we've lost. We've gone into this bullying of, hey, you need to do this. You need to do this. It's like, no, I don't. No.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. It says, I have never voted in my life, and today you ladies have inspired me to vote. Woohoo! All right, Barbara.
Yay, Barbara.
All right, Barbara. Well, I'm glad we've inspired you. Go out there and, cast your ballot and look at the issues. Look at the issues, because people don't. They don't look at the issues.
The people come and go. Mm-hmm. The issues stay.
Now there's something right there. Those amendments do not go out of office when the president does. So definitely look at those. You turn that paper over and you do your research. When you turn that ballot over, do your research so that you know exactly what is going on. Because people vote on those things. She said, I'm leaving work right now. I'm going.
And that's the other thing. I do think I would support a measure that that the election day in the United States would be considered a federal holiday, and that people would have the ability to come and go at work to go and vote. And it would be awesome if we ever got that passed. We have other federal holidays that, that are wonderful in of themselves, but it's like, I think this, because it's a civic duty, and a civic right, that I think it'd be great to have that happen. But I mean, again, we're 10 minutes over.
I think that's been suggested before, but they still have not. And I think it's because some people would be like, I don't have to go to work today. I'm just gonna
and that's something.
I'm just gonna stay at home. And then I mean, look at Colorado.
Yeah, it should never be when it's almost all mail-in voting.
Look, she said it was a holiday for my job. Look.
Woohoo! Good for your employer.
See,
my husband,
an employer. I want that holiday too. I'm going to work today after this.
If somebody hadn't voted, if someone needs to vote, he just says go and do it. I mean, that's what he does, and he's where he works, he's the manager, president, whatever, and he has said, if someone hadn't voted, I would like, and that's the other thing too. He also offers flu shots for everybody too. So it's like, it's about the employers get in on it too. Getting out there and just there's something empowering. And as a woman, and you as a Black woman, there's something empowering by making
a Black woman.
You're a Black woman. That's a joke, right?
What? No.
But as someone who,
I gotta say, be like, as a woman, as a white woman.
I'm white? Wait a minute. So, there's something empowering by doing it. Whether you think your voice is heard or not, it is it's my choice, my duty, my responsibility. And my the only other duty that I have is to pass that on to my kids.
It's like what you're passing on to your kids is knowledge, though, not just you got to go out there and vote. You're passing the knowledge and the understanding onto your kids, where you're actually showing them, hey, these are important things. Where like you get some people that are like, hey, it's important that you vote for the president. Okay, so then kids are like, I don't know them. Why would I vote for them? I'm not listening to that stuff. Now, but
they're just a bunch of old white dudes.
Exactly, it's just a bunch of old white people. Why should I vote for them? But if you turn the page over and say, hey, let's sit down and look at some of these issues, because then I feel that young people will say, hey, some of that might affect me later. Some of these things might affect me when, in my lifetime, because these things stay. These are the issues that no matter who's president, these things stay. These are the things that won't go away.
Here in Colorado, one other thing too, we have TABOR, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And it's supposed to keep the spending in check. It's supposed to be our government spending in check. And you see, one of the ballot issues, I think, was to not to have all these fees. So one of the things Colorado's not supposed to do is do any tax things without voter approval. Well, now they're doing it in the form of fees. And if you look at your receipts, you're going to see fees attached to your receipts in certain areas, public improvement fees for, you look at your vehicle registration, look at those fees.
Well, everything is passed down to, everything is passed down to the consumer. Why? Because we're not paying attention to those issues. We're not paying attention to those things that are being passed.
And I think there's something on the ballot that addresses those fees.
Right. And we didn't, and we didn't pay attention to it. It's like, I remember where they were trying to do the whole pay for your bag thing at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, yeah, no.
Because it directly affected them, right? Because it was something tangible. It wasn't invisible at the time.
Right. But see, that's just it. There's a lot of states right now. You go to them and cities, you paying for bags. Why? Because the people didn't pay attention to that article during voting. They didn't pay attention to that article, and it passed. And all the people that knew about it voted for it. And then all the people that didn't know about it,
rude awakening,
and they didn't read it, and then they're like, "What? I don't want to pay for a bag." It's like, well, then you should have voted as well. Now it's harder to get rid of
Yep.
Then it
Well,
was.
there's an amendment that they're trying to repeal. There is an amendment they're trying to repeal called the Gallagher Amendment, and that's on our thing too. And that actually taxes businesses different than residential. Well, people think, oh, that sounds great, especially during now. But what they don't realize is they've got to make up that tax revenue somewhere else. Where do you think they're going to make it up in? They're going to tax property. They're going to tax real estate. Yay! Love it. I wish I could. Yeah, would I be interrupted here soon? So yeah, no, I mean, there's things out there that it just don't listen. The other thing is don't listen to what everybody says. Do your own research. Do your own pro and con. Think outside your box.
Right.
And think outside, well, if I vote for this, what can this do? What really can this do? And some things are, pretty straightforward. And some of this stuff is just, they have so much in there that it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, because some things are wrapped up in something good. I've learned that. It's like it'll be something, and then they'll tag on all of this other stuff underneath.
Well, that's what Congress does, right?
They're trying to, it's like, okay, well, we'll give you this, but then you got to give us all of this.
Yeah, and that's why
people don't realize because they never read, all they read was the sensational piece. And then they didn't read all of the little fine print underneath. And so then they pass things into law, and then they're like, well, where'd that come from? Where'd this come from? It was all tagged on to what you voted for. So it's like, if you're going to go out there and vote, do your research.
That's the thing that you don't understand either, because people don't understand, like Congress is like, why didn't they pass this whatever in Congress? They're working on some type of bill, right? Well, what we don't see is what is attached to that bill, just like what you said. There's all these earmarks. Okay, so you pass this bill, but then you get something, and you get something, and you get something. You don't want that. It should be like the 10 Commandments, That's like the healthcare, the Affordable Care Act should never have been 2,000 pages long. Right. It should have been like the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not, deny people based on pre-existing conditions. Thou shalt not do whatever. Simple cut, but you have all this stuff in there that, I remember Nancy Pelosi said, well, we'll figure it out as we get through it. It's like, what? Yeah.
I know. It's like, then she said you had to be really careful reading the ballot because that Fair Tax Act was hard to find. And so, and it's true. And it's like, so, and that's the other thing is keeping stuff hidden. It's like things you might look for stuff, but then you get exhausted because especially if you're in the little booth. And you're like,
you're supposed to be able to take as much time in that booth that you need to take.
I know, but people don't. People are like, I want to get in here and get out. I don't want to be sitting in this booth all day. Somebody else is waiting behind me. People trying to get their vote in. You know how it is.
Yeah, they just need a short, angry white woman like me to be a campaign and say.
But see, that's why I like the mail-in ballots. That's why I like the mail-in ballots. You get them, you could sit at home with them, you could read them, you could go through, you could do them with your children because you can't go into booth. Back in the day, you went into your booth, you couldn't go into booths with each other. And so that's the other reason I like the system that we have in place is that mail-in ballot, because we can actually sit down and we can look at everything and we can vote on stuff. Because I'll be honest, sometimes I'll be like, I don't know if I really want to vote for this or vote for that. And then my husband and I will sit down because he's one of those, he gets the little blue book out. He gets the book.
And he reads probably the whole thing cover to cover.
He does. He gets the blue book out. And then like the other night we were doing our ballots and I'm sitting on the sofa, half like this. And he's reading everything and I'm falling asleep on part of it. And then finally he says, did you hear that, Louise? What do you think? I'm like, oh, can you read it again? Can you tell me again? Read that again. But it really helped with the book.
Yes, it does. And the blue book is supposed to have, the other thing with the blue book is supposed to have
pros and cons.
However, they got in trouble with that I don't know if it was the last election cycle 2 years ago or 4 years ago. They had the same person writing the pros and cons. And that's not an unbiased opinion, right?
Right.
And, and that's the other thing, it's like, I had talked to my brother as an attorney in Michigan. I talked to you about this, and he is now an election challenger. He's going around from precinct to precinct, making sure, where he lives in Michigan, making sure that they are following the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And they want attorneys to do this because attorneys aren't intimidated. The people breaking the law, because the law is pretty clear on voting. You are not allowed to protest. You are not allowed to be within certain anywhere where people are voting. You are not allowed to interfere with that person, impede, bully, or try to intimidate voters, because that is something that Russia does. That is something that other countries do, and they don't have the strict laws. So it was kind of interesting to hear him. This is the second time he's done it. And they have two attorneys, usually one from one party, one from the other, and they go from precinct to precinct and make sure that things are being followed to the letter of the law. And that's great. It's something that we don't understand how sacred that is. And granted, it's your duty to vote, but it's also duty to not to vote. So, hopefully people get out there. Hopefully people make their voices heard. I know there's a lot of disenfranchisement right now, but that's how it is. We have 360 million people in this country. We're not all going to get along. We're not all going to look at the same thing. We're not all going to vote the same way. We're not all going to live the same way, and that's okay. That's why we enjoy the freedoms that we have, and that we've built so much. Our country is almost 250 years old. We've enjoyed so much. We've done so much in that 250 years.
Oh, somebody came and joined the stream. Hey, lady, how are you?
Hey, fine. Just leaving the dentist. I said, "Oh my God, let me sign on real quick."
We've had so many. Shirley was supposed to be a part of this, and she had a dental appointment today.
Oh, really?
It's the after Halloween,
right?
Dental
after Halloween dental appointments. Yeah, Shirley was supposed to be a part of the discussion, but she had a dental appointment up there in Texas, so that's why we didn't get her in. And it was me and Lori here hanging out and sharing information. I think Leo. This is my cousin. Her name I call her Lily, but she is Dr. Leona. Okay,
that's
doctor.
You silly.
She is doctor. And so we've just been in here sharing, girl, about voting and just the information that people are getting and what people aren't getting, and the importance of your choice or duty. Looking at it from that standpoint, and also really diving into looking at the issues that people don't usually look at.
Yeah.
We always look at president, but then while we're still just looking at president, they're sliding all that other stuff in.
That's right.
Because people don't turn the ballot over and read all of the other stuff that's actually getting passed.
Like the judges, exactly. The senators, that's exactly right. They play a vital role. That's absolutely.
Yeah, and so that's basically what some of the things. Give us your take on the election and what you have seen and your kind of what you feel, because we've talked about youth and all of those kind of things, but just share your thoughts on things.
Okay. Well, I am definitely, I'm gonna just be very transparent and very real, okay? Mm-hmm. Very appalled at how things have gone with the election and all the so first of all, let me say that I voted 2 months ago. I took my mother, so we ended up voting 2 months ago, and that was exciting to be able to take my mother, who's almost 80. But in terms of the election, I've never seen anything like this before in my entire life. Mm-hmm. With all the negativity around it, it's just so much. It's a lot. It's a lot. But one thing I'm excited about is that people are coming together more, I think, regardless of the color of our skin. And that's very important to me.
Right.
And, uniting ourselves around a common cause. And for me, I'll just be very honest. I'm not sure what either of your political, I know what yours is, Louise. I am just praying and hoping that we could unite our country again. Because right now, I think we're in a turmoil. I think we are, many countries are laughing at us because of what has been happening in our country over the last 4 years. And I just believe that everything happens for a reason. And I believe that after today, we're going to see a major change in our country for the better. For the first time in the history of the United States of America. I firmly believe that. Because the ugly face of racism has shown his face in so many different ways. Racism has always been around, right? And I'm gonna just call it out. We got to get, because that's who I am. But I believe that because of what has transpired over the last 4 years, is going to unite us more together. Unite us more than together than ever before. I firmly believe that. I believe it down to my toenails. I believe it. And so I live in Minnesota, but I relocated to. We're relocating rather to Atlanta. So I've had a chance to see how things are going both in Atlanta as well as in Georgia, I should say, not Atlanta, in the Atlanta area, as well as here in Minnesota. And so, but it's an exciting, uncomfortable, nervous time right now. But I believe that all things are going to work together for the good.
Right.
All things. People that I know that had never voted and didn't really think about voting. My former students being who are like in their 30s now are voting, and so that's so important. And so I just think that it's time for change, and this election is going to bring about change.
Right. And I think that, and that's true, because you're right. But it's just like Lori said the same thing. She didn't start voting until she was in her 30s. Other people, a lot of times, because we talked about the youth, is that a lot of the youth are like, this, it doesn't matter to me. This, what's going on in the world, because they don't see that underlying issue. And that's why I said, turn the ballot over and deal with some of the amendments that are being addressed. Deal with those, because if you can't get your young people to focus on the actual presidency and all of that, turn that ballot over and show them and go over those issues with them. Go over those amendments, because those are the things that are also going to affect them. Because even after president, like Lori and I said, after president's gone, vice president's gone, those amendments are still going to be in place. Those are still going to be in place for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
long time. Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the outcome is going to be, but I believe it's going to be all good.
Yeah. I mean, well, I'm one of those people look at me. I tell them I put my faith and trust in one thing and one person, and I have never put my faith and trust in man. So half the time I tell people, I don't care who you voted for, because God's still on the throne. And that
He's still on the throne. That's right. That's right. And someone posted on my Facebook page that regardless of whoever, oh wow! So here, I'm sorry, Louise. We're here to want to pick up our was picking up the grandkids, but then.
Okay, well, thank you so much for chiming in. We're glad you were able to come and hang out with us, even for a moment, and share your views.
Sorry. Yes,
girl. I mean, just coming
to something, especially when you're talking about education. I have a lot to say.
Oh, I'm gonna have you up a whole nother day for education. You go.
Yeah, don't get me started on that with this online stuff.
Lori said, "Don't get us started. Don't get us started." Education thing.
I have my own views, and they're pretty strong.
What'd you say, Lori? Don't get on education.
Don't get me started on what's going on with education today. So So did we lose her because it's just kind of frozen? Yeah, I think she's frozen. All right. So, well, thank you so much. Let's thank Liana for I'm gonna call her Lily, because that's what I know her.
Thanks for listening. That's my cousin. And just wonderful being able to have her pop in. And so we're going to get ready because we've definitely gone over now.
I know. I got a lot to do. I got to get going to work.
I know you have to get going. You have to get going. So I'm going to close this out. Lori, thank you so much. I'm going to, Lori is actually the owner at Jam Investment LC. Lori handles investments and things like that. So she's here in Fort Collins. So if you need somebody to help you with that, she's also the owner of KRS Incorporated. Is this your retail?
Okay. So KRS Incorporated is the real estate, the sales division. Jam Investment is just my personal. Those are my farms and stuff like that. What I have that under because it's
all right. So she this is her. She's a realtor. So
I'm actually just an independent broker. I have my own brokerage.
Right. So definitely hit Miss Lori.
And I've got friends who ask me questions.
Right. She's helped me.
They can hit me up all the time.
All right. So that's how you can reach out to Lori. She's also on Facebook, Instagram. Well, I don't know if you're on Instagram. You're on Instagram.
I was, and then my son deleted it because I was trying to follow him on Instagram and he didn't want me to follow him.
You can't go around following your kids, Lori. Stop it. Stop it. Stop. Leave them alone. Leave them alone and they'll come home wagging their tails behind them. So, all right. So, Lori, hang out for a second. All right. Hang out for a second. I'm going to pull you in. I'm going to close out the day. Thank you guys for joining in. This was a really exciting time talking about the elections, the importance of voting, not to vote, and how you feel about it. Definitely watch this and share your thoughts even later, because I do come back and I read things. So share your thoughts. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this election, on voting, all of those kind of things, because I think it's really important. I really think it's important how we share this information with our children. Not necessarily, like Lori said, who cares? Live out loud. Who cares how you voted? That's your own personal, that's yours. That's your own personal opinion. That's your own personal vote. It doesn't matter if people think how you voted is none of their business anyway, because that's how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to live in this society where, we can make our own choices. And so if you're getting people and they're like, well, how did you vote? And why did you vote for this? None of your business. I voted because it was my right to vote and it was my vote to cast. And I can cast it for whoever, wherever, whenever, if ever I want to. Hey, I like that. Whoever, whenever, whatever, if ever. I guess this came up with my own. So your vote is your own business. Your vote is your own. You own it. You have the right to, and you have the right to not. But definitely do your homework, do your research, flip that page over, look at those amendments, look at what they're trying to pass, because it's not just about the presidency. It's also about what other things that they've tagged in there that they're trying to pass. Do your homework, do your due diligence. Don't be fooled by what they are putting out in the public view. Do your own work. I'll never forget my sister, my oldest sister. I'm a Christian. And one of the things that I take with me daily is my older sister always said, Louise, study for yourself. Study the Bible, study the word for yourself. Have your own relationship with the Lord. And so I tell you that today, when you're out there, you're voting, you're choosing, look up stuff for yourself, study for yourself, go through that little blue book, read those things, and so that you will know and you will learn and you will be a voter. You will be a knowledgeable voter, and a knowledgeable voter is what is needed today. A knowledgeable voter, not just like you go through the supermarket and you impulse vote. No, don't do that. Be a knowledgeable voter. So we're going to sign out, but I want you guys to know you can pick up your own Live Out Loud cup. Look at that. Isn't that Live Out Loud? I want you guys to get you a nice Live Out Loud cup. So if you'd like to purchase your own Live Out Loud cup, go ahead and send me a message. I will send you an invoice. The Live Out Loud cups are $16, so you can get you a nice Live Out Loud cup. We also have these really cool Live Out Loud stickers. Get you a nice Live Out Loud sticker, and you can stick it to your very own water bottle like me. This is what I was telling you about my shameless advertisement. That's what this is. The Live Out Loud stickers are $6. So if you like a Live Out Loud sticker, go ahead and inbox me. I'll send you a invoice so that you can get your own Live Out Loud sticker and these really cool Live Out Loud cups, which I love to death. I'll be sending Miss Lori one of these really cool Live Out Loud cups. So thank you guys for joining in. I'm sorry we ran a little over, but we had a guest come in. Woo! Always love when guests come in and say hi to us. Okay. Thank you, Sheila. Sheila said amen to that. And Barbara, I want one. Barbara wants a Live Out Loud cup, and she shall get one. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in to Live Out Loud. We will see you next week with another exciting moment of living out loud.